The Apex Predators commander Thylex stood at the observation deck of the flagship Eternal Dominion. His forearms crossed behind his back as he gazed out at the star-filled void. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the bridge lighting, each plate bearing the scars of countless battles that had earned him his position as leader of the Crimson Fleet. The Zephyrians had ruled this sector of the galaxy for over 800 cycles, and Thylex had personally overseen the conquest of 17 worlds. Commander. Captain Voran approached with measured steps, his own battle-scarred carapace clicking softly against the metal flooring. The communication array has intercepted something unusual. Thylex turned, his compound eyes focusing on his second-in-command. Voran had served alongside him for nearly 2 decades, and rarely did anything qualify as unusual to the veteran warrior. Explain. Electromagnetic transmissions from an uncharted system. The signals are primitive but persistent. Dr. Kalira believes they originate from a previously unknown intelligent species. This was indeed unusual. The Zephyrians had encountered dozens of species during their expansion, but most fell into predictable categories. The soft shells from garden worlds who surrendered at the first sign of conflict, the crystalline beings from cold worlds who put up moderate resistance, the gas dwellers who posed little threat due to their environmental limitations. None had been truly challenging opponents. Summon Dr. Kalira to the command center, Thylex ordered. I want a full analysis. Within minutes, the ship's most brilliant xenobiologist arrived. Dr. Kalira was smaller than most Zephyrian warriors, her specialized role requiring intellect over brute strength, but her mind was sharp as any blade. She activated the holographic display with practiced efficiency. Commander, the signals originate from the third planet of a system they call Sol. The transmissions reveal fascinating information about these beings, who call themselves humans. The display showed a blue and green sphere, swirled with white clouds. At first glance, their world appears deceptively peaceful. Thylex studied the rotating image. Deceptively? Our preliminary analysis indicates this planet registers as a Class 12 death world on our habitability scale. A murmur rippled through the assembled officers. To put this in perspective, our own Zephyr Prime rates as Class 9. The silence that followed was profound. Zephyr Prime was a nightmare of volcanic activity, toxic atmosphere, gravitational anomalies, and predators that had shaped the Zephyrians into the galaxy's apex warriors. The idea that any world could be more hostile was almost incomprehensible. Impossible, Captain Voran stated flatly. No species could evolve on such a world and develop spacefaring technology. Dr. Kalira's mandibles clicked nervously. That's what we thought initially. But the data is undeniable. Their world experiences temperature fluctuations of over 100 degrees in their measurement system. 71% of the surface is covered in water that moves in violent, unpredictable patterns. Their atmosphere contains oxygen levels that would be toxic to most known species. Solar radiation bombards the surface constantly. Tectonic activity creates frequent ground-shaking events. The gravity is significant enough to crush most beings we've encountered. And yet they survived? Thylex asked. More than survived, Commander, they thrived. The transmissions we've intercepted suggest a population in the billions, spread across their entire planet. They've developed technology, art, culture, and what appears to be a complex social structure. Thylex paced the length of the command center, his officers watching his every movement. The Zephyrians had built their empire on a simple truth. They were the product of the harshest world that could support complex life, making them naturally superior to all other species. This fundamental belief was now being challenged. What do we know of their physical capabilities, he asked. Dr. Kalira manipulated the display, showing crude anatomical diagrams intercepted from human transmissions. They appear remarkably fragile by our standards. No natural armor, no visible weapon systems, minimal physical strength. They seem to lack any of the obvious evolutionary advantages that extreme environments typically produce. Then how? Thylex demanded. We believe the answer lies in their adaptability rather than specialization. Observe. The display shifted. to show various human activities gleaned from their transmissions. They seemed capable of surviving in multiple environments within their world, from frozen regions that would kill most life forms to desert areas that experience lethal heat. They cross vast water bodies in primitive vessels, ascend to high altitudes where the atmosphere is thin, and even venture underground into enclosed spaces. Captain Voren leaned forward. They must possess some kind of advanced environmental protection technology. That's what we initially theorized, Dr. Kalira replied. But closer analysis suggests otherwise. Many of these activities appear to be undertaken with minimal technological assistance. They seem to rely on biological adaptation and mental flexibility rather than specialized evolutionary traits. The implications were staggering. The Zephyrians had conquered the galaxy through their natural advantages gained from their harsh homeworld. But if these humans had evolved on an even more dangerous world and survived through adaptability rather than specialization, they might represent something entirely unprecedented. There's something else, Dr. Kalira continued, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty. Many of their transmissions suggest they view their world positively. The word they most commonly use to describe it translates roughly to beautiful or home. The command center fell silent again. This was beyond unusual. It bordered on incomprehensible. The Zephyrians respected their homeworld for forging them into warriors, but no one would describe Zephyr Prime as beautiful. It was a crucible that had created perfection through suffering. They must be delusional, Voren suggested. No rational species would consider a Class 12 Deathworld to be pleasant. Or, Thylex said slowly, they represent something we've never encountered before. A species that doesn't merely survive their environment, but embraces it. Dr. Kalira nodded. There's more. Their transmissions indicate they engage in activities that we would classify as deliberately dangerous. They appear to seek out environmental challenges for recreational purposes. Explain. They voluntarily expose themselves to environmental hazards, throwing themselves from high places with primitive parachuting devices, racing across their landscape in mechanical vehicles at dangerous speeds, diving deep into their world's water bodies, climbing vertical rock faces without technological assistance, all apparently for entertainment. The assembled officers exchanged glances. This behavior was unlike anything in their experience. Even the most aggressive species they'd encountered had the basic survival instinct to avoid unnecessary danger. Commander, Voren spoke carefully. If these humans are truly from a Class 12 Deathworld and engage in recreational risk-taking, they might represent a significant threat to Imperial expansion. Thylex considered this. The Zephyrian Empire had grown through the simple strategy of overwhelming less adapted species with their natural advantages. But what if they encountered a species that was more adapted to danger than they were? Dr. Kalira, what is your assessment of their potential military capabilities? Unknown, Commander. Their transmissions indicate they possess advanced technology, but also suggest they frequently engage in conflicts among themselves. If they apply the same adaptability to warfare that they do to surviving their environment, they could be formidable opponents or valuable allies, Thylex added thoughtfully. The Empire had always grown through conquest, but perhaps it was time to consider other approaches. Shall we prepare the fleet for standard conquest protocols? Captain Voren asked. No, Thylex decided. We're going to do something unprecedented. We're going to make contact peacefully. If these humans are truly what they appear to be, we need to understand them before we act. Prepare a diplomatic vessel. I want to meet these Deathworlders face to face. As the crew began preparations for first contact, Thylex remained at the observation deck staring out at the stars. For 8 centuries, the Zephyrians had believed they were unique in the galaxy, the only species forged by a world harsh enough to create true warriors. The discovery of humans suggested they might not be alone after all. But what kind of beings would choose to make a Class 12 Deathworld their beloved home? And what would happen when 2 species of Deathworlders finally met? These questions would soon be answered, and Thylex suspected the answers would change everything they thought they knew about survival, strength, and what it truly meant to be a warrior in an unforgiving universe. The journey to the Sol system would take several cycles, but Thylex found himself genuinely curious about these humans for the first time in decades. Perhaps after centuries of conquest, the Zephyrians were about to discover something far more valuable than another conquered world. They might be about to discover equals. The revelation. 3 cycles later, the Zephyrian diplomatic vessel First Contact dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Commander Thylex stood on the bridge, studying the star system that had challenged everything his people believed about survival and evolution. The third planet hung before them like a jewel, its blue oceans and swirling white clouds masking the deadly world beneath. "Commander," Dr. Kalira reported from her station, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from the human homeworld. They appear to have detected our arrival." "Already?" Captain Voran sounded impressed despite himself. "Their sensor technology is more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Put their transmission through the translator," Thylex ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with an unfamiliar voice speaking in clear, measured tones. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. We have been monitoring your approach. Your ship design is unlike anything in our databases. We request you identify yourselves and state your intentions." Thylex exchanged glances with his officers. The humans' directness was refreshing compared to the fearful babbling they usually encountered during first contact. "Open a channel," he commanded. "This is Commander Thylex of the Zephyrian Empire, aboard the vessel First Contact. We come seeking dialogue with your species. We have intercepted your transmissions and wish to learn more about your people." There was a brief pause before Captain Chen responded. "Commander Thylex, this is a historic moment. We welcome peaceful contact with your species. Would you be willing to meet in person? We have a space station in Earth orbit that could serve as neutral ground." "Agreed," Thylex replied. "We will dock within the next solar rotation." As the First Contact approached the human space station, Thylex marveled at its construction. Unlike the purely functional designs favored by most species, the human station combined practicality with an aesthetic sensibility that seemed uniquely their own. It rotated slowly, generating artificial gravity through centrifugal force, an elegant solution to a common problem. The airlock cycled and Thylex got his first look at actual humans. Captain Sarah Chen was smaller than he'd expected, standing barely half his height with no visible natural weapons or armor. Her dark hair was pulled back efficiently, and her eyes held an alertness that reminded him of a predator evaluating potential threats. Behind her stood Dr. Marcus Rivera, a slightly built man whose intense gaze suggested remarkable intelligence, and Lieutenant Jake Thompson, whose relaxed posture somehow conveyed both competence and danger. "Commander Thylex," Captain Chen stepped forward without apparent fear, extending a hand in what Thylex recognized as a human greeting gesture. "Welcome to humanity." As they moved to a conference room, Thylex observed how the humans moved. Their gait was efficient, economical, suggesting creatures adapted to conserving energy while remaining ready for instant action. They seemed comfortable, in their own skin in a way that spoke of supreme confidence in their environment. "Before we begin formal discussions," Dr. Rivera said, "would you mind if we asked about your homeworld? We're naturally curious about other species' evolutionary backgrounds." "Of course." Thylex settled into a specially designed chair. "Zephyr Prime is classified as a Class 9 Deathworld. Volcanic activity, toxic atmosphere, extreme predators, gravitational anomalies, and constant environmental hazards. It forged us into warriors through necessity." The humans exchanged glances. "Class 9? Captain Chen asked. "What scale are you using?" Dr. Kalira, who had accompanied the delegation, explained their classification system. When she finished, Dr. Rivera nodded, thoughtfully. "Interesting. By your scale, Earth would rate as approximately Class 12. We've always known our world was challenging, but we never thought of it as unusual." "You consider a Class 12 Deathworld to be normal?" Captain Voran asked incredulously. "Well," Lieutenant Thompson smiled, "it's the only world we've ever known. Sure, it's got its dangerous moments, but it's also incredibly beautiful. The same forces that make it challenging also make it amazing. Could you explain? Thylex asked, genuinely curious. Captain Chen activated a holographic display showing various Earth environments. Take our oceans, for example. Yes, they're vast and powerful enough to destroy most human creations, but they're also home to incredible life forms. They regulate our climate, and many humans find swimming or sailing to be deeply satisfying experiences. You voluntarily enter the water? Dr. Kalira asked, her compound eyes widening. All the time, Dr. Rivera laughed. Some humans spend their entire careers studying ocean life. Others race boats across the surface or dive to incredible depths, just to see what's down there. But surely you avoid the other dangers of your world? Foreign pressed. Actually, Lieutenant Thompson said, many humans seek them out. We call them extreme sports. Rock climbing, skydiving, mountain climbing, cave exploration, desert trekking. Some people spend their free time deliberately facing the most challenging environments Earth has to offer. The Zephyrians sat in stunned silence. This was beyond their comprehension. Even their warrior culture, forged by necessity, didn't seek out additional dangers for recreation. Why? Thylex asked simply. Captain Chen considered the question. I think it's because challenges help us grow. When we push ourselves against Earth's extremes, we discover capabilities we didn't know we had. We become stronger, more adaptable, more creative in solving problems. And, Dr. Rivera added, there's something deeply satisfying about working with natural forces rather than just fighting against them. A mountain climber doesn't conquer the mountain. They learn to work with rock and weather and their own limitations to achieve something remarkable. This adaptability you speak of, Dr. Kalira interjected, our analysis suggests it's your species' primary survival trait. Rather than evolving specialized advantages, you developed flexibility. Exactly. Captain Chen nodded. Humans can learn to live in deserts, forests, mountains, islands, frozen wastelands, even underwater with the right equipment. We adapt to whatever environment we encounter. But you must have some natural advantages, Foreign insisted. No species survives a Class 12 Deathworld without evolutionary benefits. The humans exchanged another look. Well, Dr. Rivera said slowly, we do have a few traits that serve us well. Our brains are quite large relative to our body size, which allows for complex problem-solving and learning. We have excellent endurance. Humans can literally run other predators to exhaustion over long distances. Our hands are incredibly versatile tools. And, Lieutenant Thompson added with a grin, we're apparently crazy enough to think that facing danger is fun. There's something else, Captain Chen said seriously. Humans work together exceptionally well. When we face challenges, we combine our individual adaptability with group cooperation. That multiplies our capabilities exponentially. To demonstrate, the humans showed videos of various activities. Rescue teams working together to save people from natural disasters. Scientists collaborating to explore dangerous environments. Athletes supporting each other through extreme challenges. Groups of humans accomplishing things that would be impossible for individuals. This cooperation, Thylex observed, it extends beyond mere survival. Oh yes, Dr. Rivera's eyes lit up. We cooperate on art, science, exploration, building societies. Humans have this drive to understand everything around us and to share that knowledge with others. Even when that knowledge involves danger? Dr. Kalira asked. Especially then, Captain Chen replied. The more dangerous or challenging something is, the more determined we become to understand it and master it. As the discussions continued, Thylex began to understand something profound. The Zephyrians had become warriors because their world demanded it for survival. But humans had become something different. They had become explorers, innovators, and adventurers because their world inspired them to constant growth and discovery. Commander, Lieutenant Thompson said during a break, in the formal discussions, would you like to see some recordings of what we consider normal recreational activities on Earth? What followed was perhaps the most enlightening and terrifying hour of Thylex's life. He watched humans throwing themselves from aircraft thousands of meters above the ground, trusting primitive fabric wings to save them. He saw them racing wheeled, vehicles at speeds that would be lethal in any crash. He observed them deliberately descending into deep caves, climbing frozen waterfalls and surfing massive ocean waves that could crush them instantly. "You do this for pleasure?" Captain Voran asked weakly. "Absolutely," Captain Chen confirmed. "These activities teach us about ourselves, challenge our limits, and honestly, they're incredibly exhilarating." "But the risk of death?" "Makes it meaningful," Dr. Rivera finished. "Humans seem to need some degree of risk and challenge to feel fully alive. A completely safe environment would actually be psychologically harmful to most of us." As the meeting concluded, Thylex realized that everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about strength and survival needed to be reconsidered. They had built their empire on the assumption that the harshest world produced the strongest warriors. But humans had evolved on an even harsher world and become something unprecedented, a species that didn't just survive extreme conditions, but actively sought them out for growth and joy. "Captain Chen," Thylex said as they prepared to part, "we came here expecting to encounter another conquered species or potential enemy. Instead, we've discovered something remarkable. Would your people be interested in an alliance? The galaxy is vast, and there are many challenges that might benefit from human adaptability and Zephyrian strength working together." Captain Chen smiled. "Commander, I think that's exactly the kind of challenge humans would find irresistible." As the Zephyrian ship departed Earth's system, Thylex stood once again at his observation deck. But now his thoughts had fundamentally changed. The Zephyrians had spent centuries believing they were the galaxy's ultimate warriors. But they had just met a species that had turned surviving into an art form, cooperation into a science, and danger into a playground. Perhaps, Thylex mused, true strength wasn't about being the fiercest predator. Perhaps it was about being curious enough to explore the unknown, adaptable enough to thrive anywhere, and wise enough to know that the greatest adventures were always shared with others. The alliance between Zephyrians and humans would indeed change the galaxy, but not through conquest. It would change through the simple power of two Deathworlder species learning that together they could face any challenge the universe might offer and probably find a way to enjoy the experience.